All right, so maybe I should just start with a little background on how I came to know the EPC, how I got involved, what I did, and give you some recommendations. And then you guys, obviously, if you ever want to talk to me, just reach out. I'm around. So I attended one of the first pretty big Earth Day celebrations post-COVID that Councilwoman Holland had been very involved in organizing. It was a fantastic event, and it was at Holbrook Palmer Park, and I was really inspired. There were speakers, great speakers. There was a woman I'm still in touch with from SFO. There was someone from a cultured meat company, plant-based, and maybe two or three other speakers. I found it to be, very inspirational and educational, and I'm a very big proponent of education. Um, and the following year, I got involved. I started working closely with Rachel Launder, who's now working for Menlo Park in a similar capacity. She had come from San Mateo Office of Sustainability for the county, so very experienced. And we decided to do a collaborative Earth Day, very different from the one that was done before. We did it at MA. I had a son at Menlo Atherton High School at the time. I have another one at Menlo School right now. And that was done in collaboration with Menlo Park, Palo Alto, the county, East Palo Alto, I think. And it was a very large event, a very different type of style because it was on a high school campus. And if you've walked through MA, it's a very different kind of feel than you would have at Holbrook Palmer. But yet we had, over 1,000 attendees, and it was, it included a lot of youth who were standing up talking about their experience in sustainability. We're on climate action. And then we had a lot of vendors as well. So that was a very different event. We got feedback from the council that there was more interest in having kind of a smaller neighborhood style event as the previous year, which was in Holbrook Palmer, which is what I did for the next one. With both of the events that I really managed and then helped Christabel with this last one, we reached out to a lot of vendors. We have a fantastic vendor list. And again, the idea was around education. What are the resources that people can get access to learn more about sustainability? And I think the definition that really governs us is around, I think it was 1987 when the UN came up with this concept of sustainability is taking what you need, but yet preserving for future generations to still have access to the resources that they need. My view was more around sustainability broadly as opposed to purely environmental, although this is an EPC, Environmental Programs Committee, but climate change underpins everything to do with the environment and sustainability. So they're all very intertwined. But that just brings me to the educational component. We had people from backyard chickens from a local feed store to bugs and kind of learning about biodiversity for children. We've had different vendors at one point, and then there was a lot of discussion about, whether or not they could sell things, which technically they can't without a business license here in Atherton. But we had plastic-free, two different plastic-free shops. One had been in San Mateo, sadly closed, Bird's Filling Station, another one from San Jose. But again, it's all kind of about education and resources and what can people get access to. We've tried to have different films as well at the same time because we got inspiration from previous years of Earth Day celebrations where a film had taken place at the auditorium at MA with great success. So we kind of merged those together. I would say separate and apart from Earth Day, which really took up a lot of time, was some educational events I helped Rachel coordinate where we got leadership from the county, and one was on composting and vermiculture, which is worms, if you're familiar with that. And And then together with Ken, we did an event that was, again, very education focused on what are the different types of non-gas powered yard tools. And I thought that was very successful. We had a rainy day, so not great attendance. Big takeaways from this is it's very difficult to engage and get people excited to break away from their work, their family life, taking care of kids, you know, and other obligations. I think our community is very, has a lot of potential to have a bigger impact than just on the town of Atherton. Many of them hold positions of influence, owning companies or being influenced, having influence over a lot of companies if they work in VC or PE. And so having that education and learning about different small steps they can take at home or in the workplace, I think is really can make change at scale. One thing that we did not dive into, and I know that it's a topic of great importance to certain people on the council, is the climate action plan. So we can go into more details about how that came about. I would just caution you, I'm very involved with ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance reporting for corporations. And there's a lot of concern over greenwashing, otherwise known as green hushing. There's a lot of concern around making claims on net zero, which has to do with greenhouse gas emissions. And so I think any statements about that just have to be made with caution. So in looking at the climate action plan and looking at what's realistic for the town, what's realistic for the county, what's realistic for the state, just be up to speed on what's happening at a national level or globally around net zero claims. But there are a lot of steps that can be taken. The dashboard that comes along with the climate action plan is really interesting. I think we just have to get it into the hands of folks. I wish we had done more with youth. Through Councilmember Widner, we have a connection with a group of students who represent the different schools. So in Atherton, so MA, Sacred Heart, and Menlo. And they all have been involved in our Earth Day festivals. And I think it's fantastic to get that energy. We had a group of students from Menlo who were part of the Surfrider Foundation, and they talked about ocean health and ocean, and they had a table one year. We had some other students who were doing a whole project around Long Walk to Water, a book they had to read. So it was really more about water sensitivities. So I wish I had gotten more youth involved. And I wish I had done more smaller events as opposed to putting so much emphasis on this one big event. You're in very capable hands for this coming year with Earth Day. There's already a great template. It's been executed several times. So I don't think you have to put as much thought, probably just more guidance on what the themes are that you want to have take place, but smaller events that attract different audiences that speak at different levels. So an event for children, an event for teens, an event for Ken's group, the Silver Athertonians.
Panthers.
Gray Panthers, yeah. Okay. And then an event, for folks who, again, could think about how some of these topics could be integrated into business. So that's what I wish we had done. And frankly, we didn't have enough time. Finally, if you ever want to tap into me, I'm very involved in running a nonprofit focused on sustainability. I'm teaching in Harvard's continuing education program on environmental, social, and governance reporting and data around that. So I'm still very much in the space and would love to provide any guidance or, learnings from my experience. So any questions?
Pause, we have the new member. We should talk about does what and how to.
Yeah.
Because until last year, it had been an EPC event.
Correct.
Last year was changed to be a town event.
Yep.
Reason being, it sucks up so much time.
It was a lot of time.
It was hundreds of hours of our time. and not getting paid, you only have so much lifetime in life. So if you really want to move the needle, find things where you can, time to move the needle. Birthday such takes up second, but really that is now a town event.
Correct.
Town runs it. Our role on that is just to advise ideas, right?
Yeah, Christabel's
We'll give you
fantastic. And
that later.
Anthony is, you know, with guidance, I mean, it did take up a lot of time. We had a lot of volunteers. We would have a stand-in call, I think 3 months prior to the event with
Sunday night, right?
volunteers every Sunday. And it was like a part-time job for sure, getting it across the finish line. But that's been turned over, and I think it's more around themes, right?
Talk about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it turned out that Earth Day on its own, is such a time sink. Virtually nothing else could get done.
Correct. Yeah. And I think now you have an opportunity to do smaller events that are catered towards specific audiences, where they can really ask questions and get into some interesting discussion about what can be done at the local level.
Other side of that, my goal is to do something which turns out, how do you know whether the, that's the problem. I mean, it's not just by how many people show up, because where did they come from, who are they, et cetera. I mean, you know, we have no statistics on.
The metrics are definitely hard. I mean, for any organization, it's important to show metrics. What is that expression? You can't make, what is it, something about measure. In order to make change, you have to be able to measure. And it is hard. Even the climate action plan, the data is old, right? So, but you have to have some starting point. So I would say you could start with that data, and then you can try to collect information through surveys. But you know, surveys are also hard. It's hard to get people to respond. It's hard to get in front of them. And so that's why I think maybe even doing smaller events and taking a survey before and afterwards. How much did you learn? How much will you implement? Maybe surveying them 2 months later. There's a lot of cool things that can be done in the town, you know, bees, composting, you know, at home composting. There's a lot of things around transportation that can be done. There's a lot of ideas around electrification that can be done, but probably the only way to collect that data is through surveys.
Biggest challenge, and you guys don't know this, is getting people out of their house to get to the laptop. Just come here is incredible.
No, that's very true. Christabel's done a great job with social media, but I don't know if you guys are Instagram users. We don't have a lot of Instagram users in this town. So that's a little challenging if you're not, you know, if, you could try Nextdoor. We have a Nextdoor account too. So if it's not social media, then traditional media. We did a mailer the first Earth Day. I know Stacy had a really beautiful mailer, and I think that's how I found out about the Earth Day. That was also just coming out of COVID. But those cost quite a lot, and so you have to think about your budget and how you want to spend your dollars. The library has been a great partner in the past, and so we've collaborated with them. They're obviously under the, but they've been a great partner for getting the word out. There's bulletin boards there. We canvassed and put up a lot of flyers for Earth Day at the different businesses in Menlo Park. So that's another good way to get the word out. But Ken, you're right. It's tough to get people's attention.
The two issues are A, getting their attention. Who actually showed up here? Where they come from? How many? Who? What age? Etc. And did they do anything different? They just have a good time, or they change their lifestyle. That's the thing we got to figure out how to measure and something about.
Yeah, definitely.
Has the committee ever partnered? Every month in the mail, I get like an Atherton Living magazine. Have you ever partnered with that to write compelling stories?
You can head and pose something, editor, to get out.
Yeah,
We've done it with the Earth Day every year.
Right, you just write to them. Just give them a schedule when.
add some stories in there?
picture. And
Yeah.
you have to write essentially what you want put in,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
That's
edits
fine.
it a little.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
fine.
did it for Earth Day, so I think my family was on the cover.
You were on Earth Day.
Yeah, for Earth Day one year, and then the next year we had some of our student volunteers on the cover. And then they do a little write-up, and it's more in advance of Earth Day. So there's some planning Christabel knows that goes into that, to making sure, to Councilmember Whitmer's point, that you are in their schedule. And then they have the calendar of events. So yeah, I think there's definitely, we
Yeah.
definitely had collaboration.
But I was thinking, like, you're wanting to let, you don't have to get anyone out of
Right,
home.
yeah.
But you could do brainstorming on the spot, so grain of salt. Say a quarterly feature, one's features a home that has, or one that's, changed to, very water wise planting, and you advertise them, and you put maybe even, the name of what apiary they're working with, or which landscape gardener, and then we call up the apiary and say, hey, has anyone called you?
That's, I mean, I love that idea. We've discussed things like that in the past. We've even discussed under the guise of the environment, modern futuristic kitchens and,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, people
and asking people to do displays.
people love to show off their
They-
beautiful
And
new
yeah, and to some
whatever it
degree they
is.
do.
Yeah.
The pushback has been liability,
Yeah.
and finding enough people willing to put their home on display in that way.
Mhm.
But the topics have come up, and we have partnered with those alternative media
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm
outlets.
sure you could, talk to like the Atherton Garden Club and see if they have any gardens that they know of that, would be willing to focus, because, a lot of them are on, they do events where they let people into their home to walk around their gardens. I'm sure they wouldn't mind also sharing it more publicly.
Yeah, I mean, if we
for-
could tie something like that into one of our focus areas
Yeah.
or one of our categories that we want to really move the needle
Sure.
within our climate action plan, I would love to see that type.
One of the
forward.
things of the EPC do, hope that they would do. The number of years ago, he had $13 million from the Department of Education, capture facility park where we out certain chemicals. So help hold the water and release it later, so we drainage. Public who didn't want to have park torn up for 6 months or turned it into building a toxic waste. Forfeiting project, which now we're have help pay for city that EPC could hold a meeting, a public meeting to talk about that project was, because I'm the council. Lost 13.
You're breaking up.
Can you bring the mic a little closer, council member?
That, I think you got the message. That would be something that I think the EPC could also champion if we had another situation like that. And a lot of us think the way we could get that money back, we might want to consider, but anyway. So on those type of things that would move forward, y'all could be a spokesman. The library, I know, is very interested in doing things too, because I talk to the librarians all the time. I read to the kids over there on every Tuesday, regularly on Tuesday. And I talk to them about other projects that we can do, they can do town, and they're interested in doing that. So
Can I just piggyback on the sentiment that Councilmember Whitmer is saying, is that, and we as staff can probably do a better job when there's a capital improvement project that the town's considering, even if it's under our public works department, especially if it's under our city manager's umbrella, we can start making it a point to bring that item to the environmental programs committee, hopefully before it reaches the city council, so that we can engage you, solicit your feedback, get your input, hopefully your support depending on that project. And then either you make a recommendation to the city council when those go forward, and so that we can utilize your, status in the community and your position on the Environmental Programs Committee as an advocate or a champion for those. For example, committee member Frederick has had comments related to our installation of new electric vehicle chargers at Holbrook Palmer Park and here in the police department. And, it's fair to say that as staff, had we maybe brought that to this committee earlier for review and input and guidance, we may have made a different recommendation, or we may have solicited, we may have structured the funds differently, so we can do a better job, I think, as staff, to bringing some of those things that typically haven't been a part of the Environmental Programs Committee, but certainly have an impact on our environment, to your point.
But I do think that partnering any organizations that are already in front of people, whether it's publications, the library, the Office of Sustainability has a lot of resources at the county level. The schools are a great place, especially the high schools, to get in and have discussions and influence. And then, Ken, we had talked about the owls and owl boxes. We've talked about bees. We've talked about this frog that's endangered. So, we've looked at different things. I guess the recommendation I would make is decide on a few and go deep, as opposed to casting your net too wide, because you just won't have enough time in terms of when you meet and being able to execute. So I just think carefully about what are going to be really important topics to you, and then work with other partners to try to get it across the finish line.
Last question.
Okay.
You and I talked, and maybe now's the time to do it. What are the biggest environmental opportunities beside 94027? What things happen here? And if we could change them, biggest impact on the, right? I mean, and so what are they? The whole focus has always been focused on electricity. Is there something different than that? I personally would pause. Biggest damage done in what 94027 is. No, what I'm saying, what about money for a second? What is the thing going on in this town? What class of things causes the most environmental damage? And can we modify that in a good way? For example, the town decided 3 years ago or something that electric leaf blowers were the thing. So leaf blower thing, they focused on that.
That was in response primarily to what the state was already planning to do. And I don't want to steal your thunder, but I think the answer is really obvious. It's construction. And so we don't have multifamily, we don't have commercial, we have single family residences that can be fairly large. And the biggest business and the only business that really takes place in the town of Atherton is the construction of these residences. And some of these properties can take 2 and 3 years to construct. And so that's 2 to 3 years worth of vehicles coming in and out of town. And we can't even account for the carbon footprint in terms of the shipping costs related to materials and the boxes and the workers who drive into town to get that done. There's impacts there, but the short answer is absolutely construction. And then the more nuanced response is, what's the town doing to mitigate this, or how are we trying to improve these things? And I think there's a few things, and Christabel probably has some insight on that.
Are the reach codes? We've already done the reach codes.
There you go, council member. So some of those things are reach codes, which has been brought to this committee, was brought to the city council. They've had a number of discussions about it, and Christabel is much more informed on it in terms of how it's impacted the work that we do. And some of the things the council adopted and some of them they didn't. So I think, to your point, we've already started working on those questions and the responses.
However, beyond that, maybe there's things that other people can come up with ideas more than.
Yeah,
Right?
I would totally agree with that.
Obviously, one of them is there anything you do to reduce the time? Build the house, and I know you guys are worried about that. But the other side of this is, we had talked about this. Should we have or consider having some kind of an educational program dealing with new construction and what things you could do with new construction and more environmentally friendly. Spend money, cheapest thing to do is in new construction later on. So all the water savings, the gray water, all that stuff makes sense in new construction. Going later is later. And how do you get there? Well, one way you can get there is you can make it part of our building code. Speaking of higher, part of our building code, not that they have to do it, but here is the things you have to do. Oh, by the way, here's some extra things you don't have to do that are really good.
But that's what the REACH code is.
Well, the reach code's only so far. It
No, the
is,
reach
but it's
code's
not everything.
required in some cases.
But in others,
What he's saying is before we did reach codes, we had recommendations that we would recommend that they would incorporate this and
which we still
recommend.
have with like
And so that would
landscaping.
be for the gray water, this is how you would do gray water. This is benefit, and we're recommending that unless you make it an ordinance and require it. for
And you
new
could also partner, which we've done a lot, with Menlo College. They have a real estate major there. And you could have someone come in from the U.S. Green Building Council. USGBC does all of the leadership in energy and environmental design credentialing. And they could come in and give a chat about what are best practices. And they could have vendors, like we did with the blowers, to talk about best practices. But I think there's kind of two separate categories. And to your point, why I think education is so important, if you looked at the biggest carbon emissions associated with the town, I'm sure it has to do with people's travel. And so if you can just make people aware of the impact of air travel, it might make them think differently. So I think, again, it comes back to education. Maybe people don't think about that when they're booking a trip or a work trip. So again, as I said before, I'm a big advocate for education. And I think most of the time people want to do the right thing. They might just not know. So
So I'll end this all issue by construction. Question is, makes that decision? What person says, yes, I want that to be a greenhouse? Is it the builder? Is it the architect? Is it the owner? Varies a lot. And the question is, if you really want to move the deal, you got to find that decision maker.
Well, maybe what we should
You got to
do
get to them.
and is to have Anthony arrange at a future meeting, perhaps even the next meeting, we have the building official join and talk
Exactly.
about
Yeah,
some ideas on what can be done to get greenhouse gases out of construction space and help. He came from other areas, so he knows what other communities, such as up in Marin, what they were doing, which is different than what we're doing and things like that. So he could at least talk to the committee about things that he's seen and some of his ideas, and then they can run with it for a while and make a recommendation. If they make a recommendation, we can then have Brittany or somebody from the building department come down and codify it into an ordinance that brings to the council. So, I mean, those things will take some time, but I think a start would be talk to the guy who's in charge of the building here in Atherton. I'm sure he can spend an hour down here. We're talking to the committee.
We were saying the same thing. One thing that I noticed is that town tends to be in silos, talking to each other. The environmental committee could be talking more to the Hopewell Palmer Park Committee, et cetera, the transportation committee, because they all interact. And so maybe there's a discussion someday of the committees talking to each other. What are the other guys doing as far as environmental goes? I don't know, but get the silos to talk to each other. It's got to be nothing but good news out of that. Anyway, I'm done. Thanks.
all right, well, you know where to reach me. So
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for sharing.
Thank you, Amy.
And thank you for that discussion. We took some notes there and are going to explore some of those last points made. Is there anything you'd like to comment on? Public comment? Awesome. Okay, moving on. I do want to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves to one another. And for the record, I do want to note that Gregory joined us at about 1:20 p.m. Thank you, Gregory, for joining us.
Yeah, I've been here for quite a while.
Yes.
At first, the link didn't work.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We wanted to say it on the public record for our recording. Before we all get the chance to introduce one another, existing members, new members, I do also want to talk through some of your own environmental priorities, what drew you to the EPC, what work you'd like to see done in the EPC, any environmental programming you'd like to see in town, and all of that. But before we get started with that, I do want to go through with reading the EPC charter. Gregory and Ken, this was just read to you not too long ago, but for the new members, this will be new to you. So bear with me. It is on your packet on page 5 if you want to read along. But I'm going to go on and start with the Environmental Programs Committee Charter. The Environmental Programs Committee provides the City Council with recommendations, outreach programs, and education on environmental issues facing the town's natural and built environment consistent with the town's climate action plan. The EPC typically meets every other month at the town center. Acting in an advisory capacity, the Environmental Programs Committee shall have the following powers and duties. A, upon request, make recommendations, programmatic and legislative, to the City Council on all matters pertaining to the town's natural and built environment and the town's regional role and responsibilities as one of the communities of the San Francisco Bay Peninsula. B, pursuant to establish City Council programs and policy to include the town's climate action plan, assist staff in the creation of proactive community engagement programs for residents, commercial and public enterprises active within the town's jurisdiction. The Environmental Program Committee consists of 5 appointed resident members and 1 City Council member liaison, as shown today. Thank you for being here. The City Manager's Department is assigned overall responsibility of the Environmental Programs Committee. Any questions, comments, or concerns on that blurb?
2A, it says, on request.
Yes.
Does that mean that unless we requested, we shouldn't do anything?
No, certain things that the council is. Broad thing is work the climate action plan, but the town may from time to time say, hey, we need the EPC to look into this or to come back with a report on that. Just like we do with the finance committee, they're looking at the pension issues that we have. So, but that's a special project that they're doing and they bring it back to the council. I don't think that the council's going to give this committee every little thing that they work for.
Oh, no, I'm just the way it says, it's like you shouldn't do anything unless you request it. But
No,
not true.
that's not the intent of it. To the
Yeah.
council member's point, let's say the council wanted to consider some requirement that all new construction install a gray water feature. Well, hey, let's let the EPC conduct either a subcommittee or some type of investigative research, which would, be in partnership with staff, and then maybe you'd recommendation of the
Or we
city
can do the
council.
reverse. We can take the lead, say we should do this.
It could happen.
If there was mutual consensus from the committee as a whole. yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
the committee would
advisory
make a
part-
recommendation they would vote to send a recommendation to the council
Yeah.
and it would get on. In the next month or two, in a regular meeting, the council would look at it and say,
Right.
"Yeah, we want to go in that way or we're not." The same as I think at this point in time, we are going to have an Earth Day. We have funds available for it. It's going to take time to plan what you're going to do. So sometime in the next future meetings, y'all are going to have to discuss what it is that you think that should be getting done so that Cristobal could start arranging for vendors and things like that. So that's going to take some time. You don't want to do that at the last minute. And so then you make a recommendation of what you think is the amount of money that's been allocated going to be enough, or do you need more, just like you did last year? And we allocated the extra money. So anyway, but and there's other things that are coming up that's going to cost money. Fine, that you need to bring that up. Because only staff is the only one here that can spend the money. Council can't spend the money. They can allocate staff to spend the money, but council cannot spend the money. Only staff can spend the money that they have. So anything that's costing money, make a recommendation, get the council to approve. City manager. First of all.
Aside from the larger projects that committees would be tasked with advising on, there are smaller projects that staff might ask for feedback on. As I've mentioned, that we're getting started on a compost hub at the park, and I'm going to be bringing a conceptual plan, asking for feedback, design elements, anything that you think it's missing or might benefit the community even more. That's an example of a smaller staff project where I'm directly asking for the EPC's feedback, and then I would also go to maybe the Park and Rec Committee to get their feedback, as the compost hub would be in the park. And then that would simply be a report out to the council, where the committees are more so providing that feedback and driving that direction with staff.
There are eyes and ears to what the community wants. Or next EPC meeting, which won't happen until January, we're having the vendor who developed and manages our climate action dashboard. So it's our climate action plan in a digital environment, present to this group. And I think just, there's some serendipity there with our UX designer now on the board, who can probably give them and us some insight on how to use that tool better, how to engage our residents with that tool in a different space, and look at the demographics. We could even give you the most recent town survey that we conducted, which asked residents how you guys like to be communicated to. And I'm sure that you can draw some comparisons on how
I'd
we
love
can.
to look at it.
Yeah, so that's an example of another way that we would not only use your skill set, your interest, but how we can, improve on what we're doing with.
The other thing too is if you guys feel that you need to have an extra meeting, chairman.
You could always do it.
Can call a special meeting, provided that people are going to show up. So talk to Cristobal, and she would contact everybody and say, are you available on this day, or that day? And then chairman would call, once we understood that we could get a quorum, call a special meeting, cover a certain, whatever is important. Also, if there's something that Cristobal, like with this dashboard, doesn't have to be separately, you don't have to wait till we're having a meeting.
I'm happy to meet with you if there's a good time to do that.
So we'll coordinate. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on the EPC charter, roles, responsibilities?
And if not, can I just explain how that EPC charter comes about? So the EPC charter is within a larger resolution that's adopted by the city council. And that resolution has been amended many, many times over the last several years. We used to have about 7 committees and commissions, and that's been condensed over the last 2 years because there was a transportation committee, and there was a bike and ped committee, and there was a rail committee. We no longer have a rail station, so that's defunct. So we did away with that. The transportation and the bike committee, they were condensed. The environmental programs committee didn't have any information on the climate action plan. And so we included that in there. So my point is, it's a working, living, breathing document similar to our climate action plan. And if this committee thought, well, we'd like to see some revisions there. We get that we're a policy board, we get that we're a legislative board, but we want to do, I don't know. We want this, we want to have that as a focus area, as a specific, focus area. There's no reason that we couldn't make that recommendation to the city council. They'd consider it, and they can adopt a revised charter for the committee. So that's just food for thought.
There are no other comments. I'd like to move on to the introduction of the existing committee members and then new committee members. With that, can I kick that off with either Gregory or Kenneth, introducing yourself to the group, sharing your interest in the EPC, your goals, your priorities for the committee?
Let Greg start.
Yes, Ken will start. Ken will start, followed by Gregory, and then we'll pass it on to the new committee members.
Ken Frederick, I've been in the town since 1984. Background is an engineering degree in mechanical engineering and metallurgy. Navy submarine and nuclear submarine officer. Business school grad, and then my first job offer was from Mr. Ruckles' house at the brand new EPA in Washington, D.C. I chose not to take it because I went to work for a company called Raychem Corporation in the park. And so, but I did go back to Washington for 10 years for Raychem, then Menlo Park here for Raychem for total 25 years. They got bought by Tyco. They all went off and started little businesses or went to work for another small business and gone from there. Joined the EPC because I do believe we have to keep the earth we got. Sure. But like Amy, I believe that it's education, not legislation. I believe that the people in Atherton are smart. They are better stewards of the earth than people give credit for. You should give them the facts and let them make the decision. So I don't believe in telling them what to do, but I do believe in telling them what they can do. So I'm all for the educate and but don't legislate role. Plus, you're talking about real life and death quickly, and I don't think we're there yet, but could be. But so I'm again. So my whole goal is do something that we can measure the results and what happened. For example, we'll come to it later on. We did this thing about lawnmowers, and don't get changed in what was the value of the work we did. Spent a huge amount of time and effort giving people the facts, doing some work. But if we don't get anyone to make a movement, then that was a waste of time. Let's move on to something else. So I don't want to spend my time going forward on things that feel good, don't do good. Anyway, that's where I am. Greg?
Well, that, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Gregory, do you mind introducing yourself, sharing why you joined the EPC, some of your goals and priorities for the committee?
Okay. My name is Gregory Lowe, and I am a emeritus professor at Stanford. I worked there mostly at SLAC and also on the campus for 50 years. And I retired a few years ago, but I'm still active, and and my interest in the environment is obvious. I think it's one of the key problems that we have to solve, that we can't hide behind. I think Atherton has a important role to play because we have mostly civilians. We don't have much commercial work here, but we do have construction, and we do have the problem of electrification before us, and we have to do something so that we move away from gas and fossil fuels as fast as possible. I could answer any questions. I published a couple of books which are in the library. Any questions?
None in the room. Thank you, Gregory. Moving on to new member Sriram, if you don't mind introducing yourself, sharing some of the reasons why you wanted to join the EPC, any goals or priorities you have for environmental programming in the committee.
Sure. Sriram Iyer. Been an Atherton resident since 2014. I joined the EPC because, firstly, of course, I had a pretty good tenure with the Transportation Committee, learned quite a bit in terms of how local government operates, and I would like to learn more. But EPC specifically because at the macro level, I'm finding it surprising that there's still debate about climate change and human impact on climate change, while I thought it was a scientifically proven, foregone conclusion that we have significant impact. And I was just thinking that down to the micro level, most of us, especially people like me, are just going about our day-to-day life without really paying much attention to what we can do, except for minor changes like going to a hybrid/EV, etc. So I thought this is a good place for me to get an eye opener for myself, as well as while I'm doing that, try and see what can be done in terms of passing on that education to the rest of the citizens, understanding what impact it has, measure what impact it is having, and maybe even come up with agenda items for future meetings where we could discuss opportunities for helping citizens learn and implement actions.
Amy, Allison. I don't know
Another
why I
A
said
name.
Amy.
Yeah.
Allison, could you please introduce yourself,
Yeah.
your goals, priorities, and why you joined the
Absolutely. My name is Allison Bloom, and I joined last night, so fairly new. My background is specifically in user experience design, where most relevant activity in that area is I was head of design for a company that did energy and water management for large scale agriculture. And so I came from a background really trying to understand how large farms and food processing facilities are impacted by energy and water management. I also served on the board of a environmental news agency for a long, long time. That was mostly focused on tropical forests and tropical rainforest sciences. Um, but I decided I really wanted to have a large impact, not only professionally, but also personally and in my own community for my own children, as well as for the rest of this area. My husband grew up in Atherton. We've been residents here since 2022, and I grew up in just neighboring Menlo Park. So I've been very familiar with the area, love the area, and would love to see my children be able to have the same love of the area, not be impacted by floods and overheating and intense traffic and all these types of things that make living life in the new world hard. So that's why I joined. I'm very interested to learn about what we think at this point are the low hanging fruit for where we can really move the needle, and how we can, as a committee, use our influence and ideas to help with those projects.
Really well said. Thank you, Allison. Is it Allison or Allie that you prefer to go by?
Either is fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for the committee member introductions? Awesome. I was going to pass it over to Councilmember Liaison, if you don't mind introducing yourself for the new committee members here who don't know much about you, and then we'll pass it over to staff.
Don't
Right,
start
I'm Bill.
till the first time you got on council.
I know. This is scaring to talk to people. Bill Whitmer, I've been on the council for this, I'm starting next month. I'll be starting my 16th year. And I got on the council, first I was asked, but I got it on the council because I thought I could fix some problems that time, and still, mostly in the financial area. I'm the liaison. I volunteered to be on the liaison, as well as other committees. And the mayor makes the appointments each year. So in January, when the new mayor will be appointed in December, and over next month, he or she will decide who they want. Everybody writes in, I'll do this committee, I'll do that board, et cetera, and then they parcel the work out. So been the liaison to the EPC a number of times. It's one that I feel that we actually are making some progress, the same as on the finance committee. Spend a lot of time on that. So I have office hours if any of you all want to come in and see me and talk about anything, or you have a neighbor that wants to come in, et cetera. I have office hours every Tuesday at 12:30 to 1:30 or by request. So I'm available once to be on, have access. So my background has been, started out in the defense industry, 15 years, and then I ran IT for British Aerospace. And then I got into outsourcing for electronic design people at Cadence, and then Mentor Graphics, and taught at Menlo College for a number of years. I taught operations management, and I also worked for France Telecom, Orange Business Services, for 10 years. Also, I worked in Paris. So I've spent a lot of time in a lot of places, but Atherton's been my home since 96, my official home. You know, I think that, I think Atherton's a great place. I believe that we have an obligation to what we can as Athertonians to protect the earth and protect the environment. I'm asthmatic, so I'm very interested in air pollution and other types of, you know, construction kicks up dust and things like that. So from a personal basis, I have some keen interest in but as I said, I've been on EPC a number of times. I'm also currently, well, have been for a long time, on the Hoboken Palmer Park Foundation, been on the Finance Committee, Transportation and Bike Committee, which, by the way, we're having a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock about the transportation survey of what our next generation, where we're going to go with bikes and pedestrian ways and things like that. There's a survey that's been out. You may have gotten a message from the town says, please fill out the survey. If you haven't done that, you want to come to the meeting or want to get the link, I'm more than pass it to you. But it's important that we do that. And at the next council meeting, we'll be talking about where the speed bumps are and should we move them, should we get rid of them, those type of things. So there's a meeting last night, 2 nights ago, where we discussed that. So there's the follow-on meeting tonight and then session that we have. So it'll be December meeting. No, actually the study session. So the council has 2 meetings a month. It has one on the first Wednesday, which is a study session. So we're looking at different topics. Want to come to those? They're public meetings. And then also on the 3rd Wednesday every month, have our formal one where we make decisions and spend money. The public is always invited to all of those meetings, either through Zoom or person. Also, being a committee member, you were invited to our holiday gathering, which is going to happen, I believe it's the 17th. It's the 17th. 3rd Wednesday in December. So we're going to have a short council meeting. It will start at 6. Our council meetings always start at 6. The study sessions start at 4. So the council meeting will start at 6. It might take 45 minutes to an hour, depending on discussion, but then over in the main lobby of our building, there'll be some food, some drinks and things like that. You know, spouses are come. It's a way just to say thank you for your service on the committees, and also give you an opportunity to mingle with council members as well as other that, or just come and have a good time. Get a little bit of music. There may even be a karaoke machine. But anyway, so that's kind of about me. I mean, I have solar panels. I have a Tesla car. You know, I do my part as best I can. You know, I think that, like, you know, I think I have an automatic robot cutting my grass. I have all gas, or not gas powers, but electric powered everything for doing yard work. So I feel I'm doing part of my due diligence here. So
Leading by example.
if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you want to come in and talk to me, like I said, at any time, feel free to contact me either electronically or on my cell phone. Cell phone is 650-400-9898. Need to remember. Okay.
Anthony Suber,
Any questions?
I have a lot of questions for you, but I'll
Okay.
Safe.
But you think who's going to win the Premier League?
Well, I know, I already have that settled. Anthony Suber. Been with the town for 6 years. It'll be 7 years in May. I've been in local government here in California for about a decade, and prior to that, I did government services consulting. I'm a Bay Area native myself, went to high school and grew up not too far from here like you, Mountain View, Los Altos area. And I oversee our city clerk functions, human resources, risk management, public information, sustainability, special projects. I'm happy to serve this group, and I really enjoy this particular community group because this is one of the few times that I get to connect with residents on a routine basis where we talk about policy and we talk about opportunities to impact change. And it's a very committed group of folks, so it's fun for me. And some of the other stuff is not so fun, like working with council, for example. Christabel.
I'll borrow this. Hi again, I'm Christabel Sawyer Mendoza. I'm the staff liaison to the EPC, so the one producing the meeting packets, following up and coordinating with all of you. A little bit about me. I've been in the city manager's office for almost 2 years now, coming up on my 2 years. Before that, I was in the planning department, reviewing and approving the new project plans and permits that were coming through the community development department. So a lot of ADUs and full site developments were in review. My background is in city planning. I got a city planning degree from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a minor in ethnic studies. I'm also a Bay Area native. I grew up in East Palo Alto, Menlo Park area. I went to Woodside High School next door. So this area is very familiar. It was definitely a full circle moment for me to be working here. And I'm very happy to be here working on sustainability. It's definitely a new category in the city planning section that I haven't tapped into. Most of my experience is with housing and transportation. And now I can add administration and sustainability and a few other things under my hat. So happy to be here and happy to support you. Any questions, comments, or concerns for staff, council member liaison, or your committee members? Awesome. Thank you everyone for participating. I'm glad everyone got to know a little bit about each other, and Amy got to know more about the EPC. Sad to see you gone. You will be missed. But with that, I'll be moving on to the next agenda item. Now we can start talking business. So here we have the climate action plan overview. No worries if you didn't get a chance to review the climate action plan, but ideally you will be reviewing the climate action plan because that is what's going to be shaping a lot of our discussion. Today, I'm asking of the EPC to review the climate action plan that was updated in 2023 and provide input on potential education and engagement opportunities that can support its implementation. So with that, I'll just give a quick update on the climate action plan, give my quick staff report, and then we can dive into the discussion. So in 2021, the town updated its climate action plan to provide a strategic framework to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Atherton by 49% below the 2005 levels by 2030, and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. The climate action plan is built upon the town's progress of already reaching an almost 30% emission reduction by 2019, which was amazing. And it includes 61 updated strategies across sectors such as building energy, transportation, waste, carbon sequestration, and water use. Now, we're in the process of turning from planning to implementation, and that's where you play a key role. Here is where we're talking about the public engagement and education, and that being essential to the success of the climate action plan and what I will be leaning on all of you for. So the Environmental Programs Committee is uniquely positioned to champion these efforts by informing, involving, and inspiring residents. As the climate action plan transitions from planning to implementation, the EPC's role in building community understanding of key sustainability topics becomes even more significant. To guide and amplify the outreach, staff recommends that the EPC consider structuring its annual programming around 2 anchor events per calendar year. Now, again, this is just my suggestion, open for discussion, but I'll go through it and then we can start that discussion. I'm proposing 2 anchor events per year, one in the spring, one in the fall. In page 16 of your packet, you'll see that I proposed an example or potential spring event as a composting workshop. This is something that we've done before, has performed well, something that can be easily repeated every year if we wanted a consistent event. And then having a fall event that has a rotating environmental focus tied to our climate action plan. And this can look like a workshop series, it can look like a speaker series, a community fair, presentations, an event. It can really be anything that we come up with that we think would be best for driving implementation and moving the needle, as we keep talking about, in relation to the climate action plan and these topics on energy, transportation, waste, and water use. In addition to these public events, the town can expand our outreach through educational partnerships with local institutions such as our local schools, high schools as well, and the local college, because they represent key audiences for climate education and advocacy and can serve as platforms for youth engagement, which the council is very interested in increasing our youth engagement in town. Where was I? Collaborating with the schools can help amplify the climate action plan goals while fostering the next generation of environmental stewards. And that's something that we're already wanting to do through our Earth Day planning, but just in general Earth Day or environmental programming. So by adopting this 2-event model and expanding on outreach through school partnerships, the EPC can build continuity in its programming, reinforce the town's climate goals, and raise visibility around the climate action plan's implementation. In addition to informing residents, these efforts serve as a platform to recruit volunteers, foster partnerships, and strengthen the local sustainability culture. Ultimately, sustained and strategic engagement will enhance the town's ability to meet and possibly exceed our climate goals. So your feedback here is essential in the education and outreach opportunities that will help staff align resources and identify actions that can empower residents and youth to contribute to our climate future. Yeah. And let me just provide a little bit of context here. As Amy was mentioning during her public comment, the EPC was originally in charge of planning Earth Day, and 2024 was that shift of the EPC is now doing more education, outreach, more policy-oriented work versus planning the annual Earth Day event. So in this past year, and with some turnover of committee members, it's been kind of an up and down conversation of what we should be focusing on. And now with a full body, we're hoping to see where there's alignment on what you want to see for the public, what topics are best interest, if this 2-event model approach is a good idea to explore for the coming calendar year, or if you have any other suggestions. I know it's just the first meeting and maybe you have or haven't read the climate action plan through, but that's kind of the conversation that we're wanting to have. And how can we move the needle? How can we drive that behavioral change in our community? And how can we meet people halfway or bring it to them so that they can become environmental stewards and we can empower them to continue that work at home? Specifically driving that youth engagement, which we're really wanting to do in town. There is also a youth advisory group, I believe they're called, that is picking up. So driving any engagement with the youth, I think, is really going to benefit everyone. With that said, are there any questions, comments, or concerns on the staff report?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Gregory.
If we don't get involved in Earth Day as we did before, who will?
Me. So staff will be in charge of spearheading the planning for the event, and I will be bringing to you, the EPC, opportunities to provide me feedback, but also asking you, how do you want to participate? And then me supporting the EPC's participation in the Earth Day event. Last year, I really leaned on you all to support me in the main event, the main theme.
You mean this March?
Our upcoming Earth Day?
No, the last year meeting, the one we just had.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The 2025 Earth Day event.
Right.
I leaned on the EPC to give feedback, to tell me what the best way that they can participate. And that was by tabling surveying the community on their environmental priorities and engaging with residents versus actually planning the event. So it'll look similar to that. I'm going to ask you for how do you want to participate? And I'm going to ask you to help me produce a main theme, a main event, if you can. If not, we'll keep doing our best on our end, but those are ways that you can help inform the event. So essentially you're helping to inform and provide feedback, and then you're participating at the event either in a tabling capacity, or you can bring on an activity, an educational series or workshop at the event for residents or for youth. It can look a lot of different ways, and my job will be to support your participation in the event versus you planning the event.
So
Staff
I-
will be in
What
charge of
about the
event.
participation of all the vendors?
That will also be coordinated by staff.
Staff will coordinate it. If you have recommendations, or maybe you have a planning meeting where you discuss what you would like to see and your ideas on who should be involved, Cristobal will be the one who contacts them and goes through how, what they can do with the event and what they can't do. For example, they can't sell at the event.
But that's what we
Okay,
did this
those
year. I
type of
mean, we're just doing next year what we did this year, right? Is that correct?
We can,
What's going to be different about next year versus this year? 'Cause-
Nothing.
Nothing.
for the
Okay.
EPC or for the event?
Say what?
For the EPC or for the event?
For the event, for the Earth Day event, they're the same, right?
This
Yeah.
is just a clarification that
It's
in
not that we're
line
doing,
with the request from the committee and the support from the council, EPC will serve as an advisory group.
exactly.
We're not expecting you to be a part of logistics, coordinating tables, reaching out to vendors, soliciting participation. It's how do you guys want to be how do you want to be engaged? Do you have any ideas on the big picture theme?
But for the new guys, this is not a change. This is
No,
this is exactly what we did last year.
For our new folks,
Okay.
this will be right in line with what I'm guessing you joined up for, as opposed to running around town handing out flyers and stuff like that. Okay, anything else on that?
That's the staff report on the climate action plan.
Switching to composting for a second. When was the last composting event? This April? And where was it held?
Holbrook Pond.
The
It was
park,
held over the compost
When you
area?
say composting event, are you talking about what we do with e-waste, paper shredding and
No,
composting?
no, it says composting workshop.
We've had a composting workshop in the past, and we're looking at doing something like that in collaboration with the county office of
And
sustainability.
when was the
again.
last one?
maybe 2004, 2003.
Oh, a long time ago, okay.
It was a while ago, yeah. Yeah.
2020, not 2000.
Oh, 2020, yes, yes.
Where would it be?
Yeah.
Where was it then?
That
In
was
this
here.
room? We taught about composting. Worms.
And from my understanding, folks got free compost to take with them. It was like a hands-on, literally get your hands dirty, talk
And
about
it says it was well
compost.
attended. How many was well attended meeting? Okay, it's pretty good, yeah.
And Rick did a seminar over at the library on composting, I think.
Yes, he did.
Last year.
Yes, he did.
And everybody got a worm, right? At least one worm?
Get it?
Can we? Can we open it for public comment so that Amy can provide some historical context?
Can I push this back so that,
Yeah,
unless you like
it's
it?
kind of weird.
it's
Yeah.
kinda strange.
Yeah, so the composting event that Rachel Launder had really spearheaded, which was held here, was really a success because the Office of Sustainability, if you have a chance, you could do their online course. If you do it, you can get a little composting bin or a vermiculture little house for the worms. But they talk about different types of composting. They talk about brown versus green matter. So, kind of the right combination of carbon and nitrogen and water and air in order to get that composting going. I also thought it would be kind of cool. We never had a chance to do this, but we talked to them about being a potential vendor. But a local San Mateo-based company called Mill has composting bins available that you put in your household, and
That's the
They-
link I sent you, Cristobal.
they break it down to chicken feed. It's not compost exactly, But the woman who ran Bird's Filling Station, who tabled at our Earth Day event, she's the controller there, and it's a cool company. It's something people here might find to be innovative. We tried to pilot a more commercial version at Menlo College, but they were worried that the students would drop silverware and plates into the bins,
That's the
which
product
would
that's
break
an
them.
alternative to a KitchenAid garbage disposal, is that right?
It's about the size of a large trash
Yeah.
can, and it basically breaks it down
Don't put a KitchenAid in your house anymore, you put that in, is that right?
in your house, yeah. But it's
So
very
that's the sort of-
attractive.
But that's the sort of thing that our planning department and the contract and the building roundtable be recommending to the builders, right?
They have programs with cities. so-
It's not something you install. It looks like a garbage bin.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Very
So
attractive.
you could just purchase one and put it in your kitchen.
They're, I think,
plug it in.
$1,000 or so.
They're
$900.
cheaper than that last I looked. I think
Okay.
they were
Yeah,
six,
sorry.
7. Yeah.
But it could be something fun in addition to what the county offers. But the reason I thought it was so well attended is the speakers from the county do this all the time. And so they're fantastic presenters. They bring handouts, as well as, you can actually, learn more about the worms, get a worm house. And so I think everyone enjoyed it. And I was standing at the back, and there were tables on this side, and there were at least 40 people. And I don't know how many were Atherton residents, but I think we tried to capture that information. So, yeah.
Also, when I was the chairman of the SBWMA, was our old trash organization, they were sending teams out to the schools, be there at lunchtime and have the different bins and guide students to try and get them to learn, get into a habit of putting certain things in certain containers so that it can be stuff can be repurposed, and the stuff that can't, we're sure that it can. So,
Question about all that ties in with what you were just saying, both of you were just saying. I know that it's difficult for us to work with the public schools in this area because they're governed differently. But for example, I know my son's school, Encinal, they have a very large gardening program. Would it be possible to partner with, the PTA runs it, not the school. Would it be possible to talk to the woman who runs that and see if they'd be interested in some sort of composting activity, or having somebody come in, to the gardening events and talk to someone that way? Or is that something that's possible, or is that blurring the
That's-
lines?
I'm not sure, but that's a great example of a committee member giving me information that I didn't have. And now I can run with that and try to see if we can collaborate or partner to that extent to bring something to the full community.
I can introduce you to the woman who runs it if it's possible, if it's something you want to pursue.
That
Yeah.
would be great. I think the idea here is that we do have the reason I picked the spring workshop or compost workshop to repeat every year is because it's an activity that people can do with their kids here. They can learn it here, they can practice it at home, and it promotes conversation around what is compost. It promotes conversation around the environment, and people can physically take something with them. And so it's a really good way to include the youth, parents, and folks of any age groups, which is why it would be honestly kind of a perfect repeating event. Sure.
Sorry, I just thought of another comment on how you align this with the climate action plan. So you're probably aware that methane emissions has much more warming potential than CO2. And but as a town with our waste, we have pretty much tapped out. And Christabel can correct me if I'm wrong, but the waste is no longer releasing type of emissions, methane emissions. So the changes would be quite small in terms of overall emissions for the town through composting. So you might want to just use again this education as what's the difference between methane and CO2? Why is it important to keep food and scraps out of landfill? But if you really want to effect change and align it with the climate action plan, you want to do something that's addressing a much larger emission. So I just want to mention that because we didn't really think about that, right, Ken?
Our waste group now, the green waste, and one of the reasons we changed to green waste. Our diversion rate now in the last quarter was over 90%. Take the waste, no matter where it is, they sort through it, they pull out the organics, that goes into a composting. In some of the farms down in Salinas. And of course, they take out the normal things that go to a material processing facility, tin, paper, etc. Get that out to different locations as well. So we used to be in the 70%, because the yards are larger. You all have 2 or 3, or some people have got a lot more green bins that they fill up, and that also goes to a special facility. So, we're very high. I think the highest in the county. We were the highest in the county before when we were 70%. So obviously now at 90%, we at the top. But we do a good job of with our support from our vendors, which is why we changed. One of the reasons why we changed, plus there was also a cost issue. And I was on the board of that committee when we pulled out, so they didn't like, but it was the best thing for us. And I think that we're doing our part through a vendor. But there are people, many people on our council and myself, some of our own.
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So following up what you're saying, it sounds like composting isn't going to make a large difference as far as our climate action plan is concerned. Is that correct? Can I ask why that is a big focus now of our efforts?
I can answer that. There's SB 1383, which is, I'm blanking on the title, but it's essentially reducing food waste. And so why we're focusing a lot on our SB 1383 education and outreach so that we can support the legalities of that new legislation. So we're really doing that big push. We're turning our food scraps into compost. We're buying into compost hubs, and we're bringing free compost to the park. So those are just some ways that we're supporting SB 1383, but it doesn't necessarily need to be done in concurrence for the EPC with the climate action plan. It's just what's worked well. And at least for staff, it's an interactive educational conversation starter.
Gotcha.
And as we said, the EPC was changing from event planner to now doing more outreach and education. So this felt like a very organic way and easier way to implement it so that we could focus on one rotating event in the fall. But it doesn't need to be a compost workshop. It can be anything that we all conclude is the best fit for the community. But this was just what I'm suggesting to get the ball rolling so that we can focus our education and outreach strategies for the climate action plan's implementation.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Take a 20-minute.
Yes. Anthony, is there any procedure for that?
Just take a recess.
A recess?
Yeah, we can do a recess.
How much longer would it's?
I wasn't expecting it to take.
Yeah, I was gonna. My other question would be, how much longer do we expect the meeting?
Normally we run from about 1.
1 to 3. Okay, good to
We
know.
actually have to run, but I wanted
Yeah.
to stick around. So
I
if we're
can
gonna
wrap
do-
this up in 1 minute
Yeah.
if you'll listen to me.
Mhm.
So the climate action plan, we have it. I invite you to read through it because there are objectives and targets in here. Ken, one of them under transportation answers one of your questions on EV charging, but you'll see the objectives that we have in town. I am bringing KLA for our January meeting to walk you through the dashboard. So with that, I'm hoping that we can continue this conversation and have those focal events. But I'm really glad that we started this conversation today. If there aren't any immediate comments, do you want to do a recess after Ken's item? I don't know how quick it is.
Let's go right
I
now.
have a call at 2:30.
Okay, we can do a recess.
Maybe you do.
We can do recess.
I'll just call him.
I will have to leave by 3.
Okay,
I'll call him.
how long should the, 20 minutes?
I'm sorry? 20 minutes.
So then
a long
you'll come
recess.
back and we'll have maybe.
Okay, well,
Below, so we're gonna. Hang out.
Progress.
All right, so are we ready to start?
yes.
All right, what's the next, what's the next topic?
You're right.
All right,
Your
calling the meeting to
letter.
order again at 2:43 PM. We have 3 committee members present. Gregory should be joining us shortly. Moving on to agenda item number 6, a proposed resolution on battery operated gardening equipment. And this is something that was proposed by committee member Frederick. If you wanted to provide any context, read out the resolution and then we can have a discussion and vote.
I will supply with context, particularly because these guys don't know the background. When I joined, a little after I joined, we talked about it. One of the things we looked at was the leaf blower thing was coming in, but it was the only highlighted battery operated product in landscaping. So we went out and found a group that does landscaping, green solutions business, and they certify counties and places and all the rest. So we had them come out in 2023 seminar on what kinds of things were available for landscaping. All ways taking care of your yard that were cheaper than gasoline. A place called AGSA. And one of the things they showed us was robotic lawnmowers that were coming. So this was 2023, early 2023, March of 2023. And they showed us all the battery operated devices. The problem we looked at was that with the exception of the battery operated lawnmower, everything else costs the consumer more money. Product costs more money and it took longer to charge and had multiple charges. It's kind of early stage. So that was March of 2020. Earth Day in 2024, April, had last one that the committee did a big thing on electric versions of lawn mowing. And I don't think either one of you were there. Send me your emails.
My husband,
Did you see the robot?
he did.
Or sorry, the robot and the sheep?
I don't remember. He didn't talk about the sheep, but he talked about the robot.
We arranged a sheep versus robot mow-off. And we had 9 sheep in one part of the pen, and the other side we had the robot. It was funny as heck, as you might imagine. All the kids loved the sheep. The sheep wanted to vote. Surprise, surprise. But the lawnmower did a great job. And so we tried to then say, okay, based on that, how do we get this out into the city? And the problem is people, there's nothing driving them to do it because they got a guy that does their job right now. They're happy with them. He comes over and they'd probably do it. He's not going to tell them to use it. Now the problem is he is probably a Hispanic guy who's got 3 trucks and 2 brothers. He's limited in that both financial nous and in money themselves and in all sorts of logic. And the last thing they want to do is take on a robot to run. It's just not something in their DNA. So we started thinking about this whole thing and said, well, how do we fix this problem? What's happened now is that the whole industry has changed. Used to be you had to, originally with robots, you had to bury the wire, follow the wire like a dog fence in the old days. Now they are totally GPS, put like a little receiver somewhere in your house or a tree, runs the robot. Bury anything, runs the robot. And so now you can actually go in and install a robot, let it run without any kind of real labor. But still, if it breaks down, you're gonna, what do you do? That's not something that my landscape gardener is gonna do. So now the industry has turned to no longer sell the robot. They'll sell you if you want one. But for individual landscapers or wherever, they will lease it to you. Under the lease, they will provide all the services. So that if it breaks down, that you call them, they fix it. They won't run it for you. Run it, and you can run it from your house at 2 in the morning or whatever you want. But if there's a breakdown, they're responsible, which takes a big issue away. Now, the next question is economics. Well, rough order of magnitude, my guy says he will charges me $60 an hour, and my lawn takes an hour. So for a month, that's $240. They will lease you that lawn, provide the service I talked about, half that price. So now, make money for doing nothing, punch your phone. Then the question is, well, I used to run the lawn. Well, two things. Hard to find. Two, got a good guy. Now trimming trees and making more money.
And
So it's not like
can
anybody
I-
got
Can I request that you get closer
Closer,
to the
sorry.
mic so that Gregory can
Sure.
hear you?
So what I'm saying is, now the question is, why is this memorandum being proposed? To be totally honest, I have gotten zero support out of the town staff to do it. Not this town staff, but the town public works guys. I've asked them to work with our guys running the Holbrook Harbor Park, et cetera, et cetera. It took me 8 months to get a phone call with the company about this whole thing. And when I talked to them, they said, sure, we use them all the time. We just don't use them where you are. And so I'm saying if the town really cares about moving the needle and getting something going on in green landscaping, why aren't we doing it in Holbrook Palmer Park where we own it and we pay the guy to do it? And it's cheaper. What's wrong with this picture? So, and by the way, it provides you a place where residents can see it operating. So if you have any Doubting Thomases, they come in and there it is working. What's wrong with that? Why can't we do that? And it's been nothing but. So I've said, I give up. I will propose that the council, that the EPC send the council a request, not an ultimatum, just a request saying, good, set up a demonstration day or more, week, whatever, to show all the awesome opportunities for green landscaping in Holbrook Palmer Park. It could be part of Earth Day. Earth Day's not far away. You'd have it not at Earth Day itself, but the day before, the day after, the week before, or something, to tie it all in together. And the idea would be somewhere in Holbrook Palmer Park, there's a demonstration of all the new battery operated products for landscaping. And so this is I've asked this, I've got nowhere. I said, I give up. I need something to come from the EPC. So this is a request from the EPC to the council to see if that can be done. I think it's reasonable, but maybe it isn't. So that's the discussion.
I've placed the text resolution on the screen. I'm hoping that you see it in front of you as well.
guys all
If
have it,
you'd like
don't you?
to take a second to read through it and provide any questions or comments, or Ken, if you want to read through it, I'll allow a few minutes for you all to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll let you guys read
We
it.
summarized it. I don't think,
Yeah, you guys can read it. All I'm saying is need something to move the needle here to get the exposure. And if we can tie it into something, if the vendor were to come back and say, oh, you're asking us to do something in the town, we're gonna have to charge you extra for it. Get that price and see what it is. If it's worth spending, fine. If it isn't, don't. But sorry. But all I'm saying is I think it's a reasonable request that our town, the vendor who runs our park, have a demonstration day for all the green landscaping products we could use.
So what is the committee supposed to do with this?
So,
make a recommendation to have it brought to council,
yes.
next council meeting.
Yeah, so basically, if we voted for this, I mean, I'm wrong, just be sent to the council saying, here's a request from the EPC.
Yes, so procedurally, Committee Member Frederick is proposing this resolution, providing context on why he thinks it's a matter for the EPC to suggest to the council. So now you can all discuss whether this is something that you want to move or have a motion on to recommend that the council reviews and discusses.
So if I hear you correctly, you either say, we can all say, yeah, it's a dumb idea. Or, yeah, it's a good idea, but not in our purvey, shouldn't something we should recommend. Or say, look, it's, we're asked to recommend things. Here's something we can recommend.
Council's got, has to do, majority vote, decide to move this to the city council meeting. Be December, but
Oh, it's gonna, but the Christmas party is gonna be January. So anyway, my request is, and to vote yes on this, send it on to the council.
Thank you.
take a vote.
At this point, we can have a
I vote
discussion.
yes. I don't see a reason why we should hold back on it. I vote yes.
Thank you.
I will also vote yes.
Awesome. And would you like to do, can I have a motion to approve the EPC resolution and then a second?
I would like to, yes, I'd like to approve the
No, they
EPC.
just did.
It was a
Yeah, I'd like to approve it.
non-motion vote, but I
I'd like to
appreciate the
approve
yeses.
EPC Motion, the motion from the EPC to request that this be sent on to the council. I move it, and there's a second.
I will second and I'll vote yes.
Thank you for the record. Awesome.
Is Greg still on?
What was that?
Greg still on?
He
No.
is. Yeah, he is.
Got three.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
he's on.
You have a motion, a second, and no objections from what I'm hearing. So thank you. This was approved to be moved on to the council for consideration. We will send that packet when it's available for council in case you want to attend. Otherwise, I will keep you posted.
And as a add-on to that, one of the reasons I did this is having been on this committee for a while and going to a lot of committees in the town, things are talked about and it's kind of agreed to, but when they are like put on paper, they're not exactly, because everyone had a different sort of opinion. Sometimes they don't turn out to be exactly what everyone thought. So putting something on a piece of paper like this, say we want to do something in the future, I think is a reasonable thing because we know exactly what it is. We can change it or not and then move it up. Thank you.
Thank you. We already started talking about this a little bit, but moving on to the last agenda item, I wanted to start discussing your Earth Day participation and theme ideas if you had any. I know there are a couple new committee members here. We touched on what Earth Day has been like for the EPC. Last year, we decided that the EPC is a participant, not a planner. So really, and we don't have to talk about this today if you're not fully ready, but I want to start talking about what your participation in Earth Day is going to look like and what you would like to bring to the Earth Day event. If you
I
have
would
any
like to
immediate
bring up-
comments- Yes, Gregory, if you have any immediate comments, we can start that discussion now, but we'll likely continue it in January.
Why don't you have them
Very
say
good.
comments?
I would like to remind everybody, particularly the people who weren't here last time, that I've been following the problem of plastics in the whole country, but mainly in our county. And the last meeting where the plastics coalition discussed the matter, there were close to 200 countries participating, and they all voted for the resolutions. Unfortunately, the United States, Russia, and I believe Iran, Saudi Arabia, not Iran, Saudi Arabia vetoed and stopped the whole thing because they don't want to lose the business of making plastics. So I wanted to inform you that the whole thing is in limbo again.
Interesting. Thank you for the update. Sriram, yes.
So it'd be great if you could share a list with us of participatory activities
Okay.
that, and then if
Ideas?
there's something more, if there's
Okay.
something more we could add to it. Otherwise,
You mean
Give
from
us some-
Earth Day last year? Yeah.
Yeah.
no, for what you would recommend EPC
Does for the upcoming Earth Day.
should
I can
do or
absolutely do
could
that.
do.
Well, you
Sure.
guys have to guys should be coming up along with, well, what you would like to see done at. However, first of all, is the one who can commit vendors, spend money, those type of things. So all we ask is that committee members stay in their lane, so to speak. We have had in the past, vendors got committed or sent us an invoice for something that somebody else
Coordinated,
we
yeah.
had to pay for, but didn't have the money, we didn't plan on it. That's why we're trying.
Yeah.
Totally get that, but it was just that being new to the committee, this would help us, kick off, snowball off
I
of
agree,
her
I agree.
list. That's the
Absolutely.
reason why I was asking for her
Yeah.
list.
Thank you for clarifying the operations and logistics side, Councilmember Whitmer. I can absolutely provide some suggestions just to have a conversation to jump off of. But if you have any considerations or ideas, please feel free to email me and I'll include those for the January report. If there are no immediate ideas for your Earth Day participation, I'll move on to the future agenda topics. At our January meeting, which will be
22nd.
Yes,
Said the
January
You said the
22nd.
22nd?
Yes, Gregory. Thursday, January 22nd at 1 p.m. we'll be meeting again. I intend to have KLA, who is the operator of our Climate Action Plan dashboard. The dashboard is a public-facing tool that is essentially the same information as the Climate Action Plan in your packet. It's a more interactive, user-friendly tool to review the Climate Action Plan. They're going to walk you through the dashboard and explain how you can also be advocates of the dashboard and share it with your local community. And then that'll subsequently talk through the Climate Action Plan. And it'll feed into our discussion on what are going to be the focal events for the EPC in a calendar year that you can help move the needle, drive behavioral change in the Climate Action Plan. But then we'll also be talking about that Earth Day participation. Before that, I'll provide some recommendations via staff report. If there are no other questions or comments, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Awesome. Meeting
Did you
adjourned
see
at,
that, did you see that the meeting was on a Wednesday this time?
It's a
Thursday, Thursday, January 22nd.
Oh, Thursday. Very good.
Awesome. Can I have someone adjourn the meeting for 3 p.m.?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Meeting
I'll
adjourned.
second.
Motion
Thank you.
adjourn the meeting.
Ken with all the motions and Allison with all the seconds. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Thank you,
Definitely.
Gregory.